Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or our shortened name that makes is a little easier to remember, IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our efforts to support play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, which have been happening since 2020. So we're close to 300 of them that are free to you on our YouTube channel. You can find all of them if you go to ipausa.org, and up in that top right hand corner, click on our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and friend us, whatever it is, on Instagram. I can even remember which one goes with which. And magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm co-president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch is Lindsay Chelsky, who is a co-facilitator for Porch Play Chats. And then here to talk to us is Rachel Busch. Rachel, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So Rachel's personal mission is that she grew into a passionate advocacy for children to have access to more recess and unstructured play during their school day. She doesn't just believe in the child's right to play, she believes in their right to be. Whether it's relaxing in the grass, swinging on the monkey bars, digging in the dirt, or befriending a curious bug on the playground, every child deserves time to connect with the world in their own way. To her, unstructured play isn't a luxury, it's a vital part of learning. Oh my goodness, Rachel, I have chills all over my body just reading that.
I love it.
And so today, Rachel's going to talk to us about recess. And so she's like, say yes to recess, please.
Yeah. It started, so Say Yes to Recess, the organization, the nonprofit organization, just hit 1 year. So we're somewhat new. The recess advocacy journey for me, this is our 4th year. There's a large team of us. There's three of us that really sort of run the show when we divide and conquer. So Kathryn and Morgan are here with me today, but we're out of like we all three, our kids go to the same school. We're in Clarksville, Tennessee, and we met through we really wanted more recess. So we started with our county and we're successful at our county, and then we went to our state, and we were successful in changing the law last year in our state. So that can be a long story. You can ask questions. I can tell you a lot more than that. But after that, we just decided we want to keep going. And so we have launched 16 chapters, or we now have 16 chapters, including Tennessee. So we're in 16 states, and currently of those, three of those have bills written to increase recess as well. So we are an organization that advocates to change laws so so public schools can have the right to recess, unstructured play.
So, what we need you to do is write a little blurb about how in the world, because your children didn't have recess,
Yeah, so
you were
to
able
go
to
further into
pull
it, so
together.
yeah, it's an interesting story. So I actually have 4 kids. I have a big family, and then Catherine has 4 kids, and then Morgan has 2 kids. So combined, we have 10 kids, and and the school that they went to, they go to school on average 7 hours a day, so 6 hours and 30 minutes in between there. And they were getting 15 minutes of recess. And
Oh,
but I didn't know that. I think a lot of parents will send their kids to school and they're wonderful parents. They're just not sort of in tune, or not in tune is not the right word. They're not, the schedule isn't just posted out there. You have to, sort of dive into it and figure out your kid's schedule. It's not online for safety reasons, which I understand. So you have to sort of figure it out. So anyway, my oldest daughter, who's now 10, when she started kindergarten, she's just an anxious kid. She just struggles with anxiety, and it's opened a door for me to understand that some kids genetically are born with it. Some kids, deal with it in social settings. But we found her a therapist, and our therapist and us as parents said, you got to go outside. That's what calms you down. You got to go outside.
Yep.
And she was coming home from school, from kindergarten, more anxious than when she left. And I said,
Mm.
hey, why don't you go outside and, take your deep breaths? And she's like, we don't go outside. She said,
Oh.
she was like, we go outside for maybe, and in kindergarten, you don't really understand time. You do, but you don't. So I was like, well, how long is your recess? She's like, we only, she was sort of, I looked into it and it was 15 minutes on the schedule, maybe 20, but by the time the transitions hit, she was getting maybe 10 minutes. And I
Mhm.
was just so upset by that fact that recess had been dwindled away. When I was a kid, and we hear this a lot. When I was a kid, we had an hour, we had this, we had PE every day. Well, they only had PE twice a week, which is
Mm.
a regular change across the nation. So PE is not every day. And that's when it started for me. And I was just not okay with that. And so I called the principal and she said, oh, we hear it all the time, but my hands are tied. It just, everyone kept sending us up the
At
chain.
that time.
And
Uh-huh.
so we
Pass the
kept
buck.
going up the chain. So it was funny because I'm part of this Facebook group that talks about the school. And usually when someone posts, there's maybe one or two comments, but someone posted about lack of recess and there was like 75 comments. And I was like, so I'm not the only one that feels this way. And I have a twin sister who actually is an elementary school teacher. And I called her and I said, and what is going on? And she said, no, this is common. And she said, if you want to make change, she said, you're going to have to get a bunch of parents together and make enough noise. And she goes, the science isn't going to get you very far, unfortunately. She goes, principals actually are good principals. Their hands are tied. But she goes, you got to make the loudest noise. And she goes, and they'll change it. Parents can make change a lot quicker than teachers can. And so I did. I found Morgan through that Facebook post. And she said, I tried this last year, but didn't get anywhere. So we tag teamed. And then Kathryn came along. And here we are. So we went to our county and we went to the school board. After 2 years, they bumped it to 30 minutes. So they doubled
Okay.
it.
That's
And that
great.
got the attention of the state of Tennessee. So we
Mhm.
got some news and press after they doubled it. And we really just educated people for a year. People were like, what? It's down to 15 minutes and you're celebrating over 30? Like 30 is still not a lot. And I was like, you're right. So we went to our county and we said, we really want more than 30. We appreciate you working with us. And they said, you got to go to the state. You're not going to get more than 30 from us. And we said, Roger that. So we did.
Roger
Um,
that. Here
Roger
we
that.
go.
And we started Say Yes to Recess. And we got a big group of Nashville people to help us. And we got teachers all over the state and people all over the state through social media. And we made quite a bit of noise. And we found a lawmaker to write a law for us that was 60 minutes. Through all the committees, it dwindled to 40.
Yeah.
But it did pass unanimously in the House floor, so 95-0. It went through four committees and only got three no votes. So, yeah, I think the Anxious Generation book had a lot to do with it. Pediatric associations came behind us, health organizations came behind us.
Mhm.
And so now Tennessee has 40 minutes daily mandate. So a lot of schools are doing 220s. And like I said, and so now there's three other states that we're helping who two or three have laws that are asking for 60, the original. So our organization promotes, we ask for 60.
I'm in one of those states. I'm
What is
in New
it?
York, so I know
Where
New
are
York,
you?
New York.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I know that we're one of the newer states that are just
Yeah.
starting like in November, I want to say.
Yes, they're the 16th one. So
Yeah.
16,
And I actually just messaged my assemblyman the other day because had a post about like going back to pass bills, and I'm like, gotta mandate that recess because I
yes,
want it,
yes. The
you
teachers
know.
union in New York is very powerful. The teachers
Yeah.
union in Tennessee doesn't have as much say. It's so different from state to state, and the language and the mandates. And I think the biggest battle we have in Tennessee is people are still coming after this law. Lobbyists, lawmakers, teachers. It's a change, and the fear is they're taking away instruction time. They don't see
Yep.
this as instruction. But the thing about Tennessee, it's very frustrating, but it's understandable, is the state goes down to counties, superintendents go down to principals, principals go down to teachers, and all of this is mandated, right? Well, ELA is mandated. Well, and math is mandated. The funny thing about Tennessee is none of it's mandated.
No.
Yeah. There's two things that are mandated in the state of Tennessee, and it's RTI and physical activity, so gym and recess. Those are the only two mandates. Everything else is a recommendation. So they recommend up to 150 minutes of ELA a day for a 5-year-old.
I know it's
But they
ridiculous.
recommend it. So when you go to the state says, no, 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 we don't mandate anything.
Right.
But if the test score is lower, the counties are too scared. So they say, hey, listen, we followed your guidance. It's 150 minutes. So we have teachers coming at us all the time saying, we can't fit this recess in because all the mandates, and we have to every single day say they're not mandates. So we've
Mhm.
got to keep educating and saying that these can be lowered, but people got to make decisions to lower them and see recess as,
And also too, right, out of that 150 minutes, how much of that time is classroom management based off of behaviors, where
right,
those
redirection.
behaviors would be squashed had these kids be given that opportunity to let some steam off and play.
Right. Well, the redirection, right? I mean, you guys know the Link project.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Debbie Ray, she's helped us a lot. But the whole Link project of redirection, and they get 2 hours of time back. I mean, if teachers
Mhm.
are constantly saying, sit down, listen, be quiet, just let them go play for 10, 15. And the thing is we have all these teachers say, well, we get brain breaks. And
Oh
I,
no, those are
you know,
not good.
and then we say, well, if you give two 10-minute brain breaks, why don't you just give an extra 20 minutes of recess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. So, but again, teachers are wonderful. I think we underestimate teachers and all they have to go through. And so it is hard. These counties don't give them any flexibility. So like, we want it to be a systematic change. We want people to view this as a priority and not something that can be taken away. There's no fiscal note to recess. There's no money involved. There's not a test score.
That's
So it's the first thing to go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just
That,
really frustrating because recess helps every other avenue in the classroom.
yeah.
And
I
then
think you hit it right on the ball though with that. That's what my argument had always been in our district. There's no testing that I can show you for it, right? And like there's no money behind it, so they're not going to want to do it. And for me personally, it took us almost 4.5 years of fighting for it just to get something in the schedule, and it's not even being followed yet, right? But it's like you can't give up. And I am so excited that you were able to do so much in the short time that you've done it.
You know, I am too. I don't want to take that for granted. We are going, our plan is to maybe not this session, but next session, we're going to sort of feel the lay of the land. It's going back for middle and high school.
Oh
Not
yeah.
not recess. We want to call it unstructured or just physical activity, right? So, but
Mhm.
we talk to students. I think, these administrators, they talk to them too, but like we have like we are on baseball fields and football fields and basketball courts. And we ask all ages, what do you feel about recess? And high schoolers want it too. High schoolers, they just don't play on a playground. But they're like, we want a break. And the funny thing about Tennessee is, I'm actually a professor, and we started getting media attention, and I was like, oh, I need to talk to my employer just to make sure I'm okay and be like, hey, I'm representing everybody well. This is recess, and so anyway, long story short, I was talking to this guy. And he said, wow, I didn't really know that. My kids are out of school. And they said, that's funny because if we did that, we'd probably be sued. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, well, isn't there like a labor law against that? And I was like, oh, he's right. The labor law is 30 minutes for every 6 hours of work in Tennessee. We were given 15-minute break for every 7 hours. I was like, we're breaking our own labor law. And people are like, well, what about lunch? They sit during lunch.
Yeah, of course
What
they
about,
do.
And
what
They
not
about
should.
talking.
they can't talk.
Yes.
What about PE? They don't get it every day. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So it's like, when are they going to move? Like, literally, recess is the only time. So, if you look at it as a break, it was like shorter than the labor law. I mean, I know that's dramatic, but it was just a funny way of saying it. It was like, oh, that's tough to hear. So
Well, and they give adults those breaks, but so why do they not think smaller humans need those breaks?
yeah. I mean, it was said a couple times through all of our sessions, hey, even lawmakers get a recess, right? And we
Mhm.
were, in a Senate hearing, and House will take breaks. They're like, hey, we're going from 2 to 3, but Senate, they'll just run all night. They'll start at 3 and go to midnight if they have to. But it's funny because we were sitting in the Senate waiting on our turn, and these senators were getting up, like walking around,
We're
and they were
taking a
taking phone
break.
calls, and one just left. Like one
Mhm.
just got up and left during a testimony, and I didn't blame them at all. I was like, they need a break. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
exactly. I was like, they need a break. And the attention span uh, doesn't just miraculously get to 90 minutes. No one's attention span is 90 minutes, and kids are 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how old you are. But even the longest attention span usually stops at 30 minutes.
Mhm.
So we're holding our kids to a higher standard than we're holding our adults. I mean,
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and it's silly because some laws will give a weekly mandate. Like, so we don't have recess in middle school, but we have a law that says 130 minutes a week, or that was elementary, I'm sorry. So anyway, it's a weekly mandate. So some schools will give it all on a Friday or they'll stack on Friday. I'm like, what medical professional recommends a weekly mandate? Now, I've heard doctors say you need to exercise 2 or 3 times a week, right? Where you're like, blah, 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 or lift weight. But they also say like you need to do something daily.
Yeah.
Like it's like you can't just say, okay, you know what? We're not going to have lunch Monday through Wednesday. So you can just have all
Mhm.
your lunch on Thursday and Friday. So it's like we've got to do a daily mandate.
Mhm.
These weekly mandates are not
Mhm.
sufficient. They're not developmentally appropriate. So.
And I
One
think
of
it's
the
interesting too because they're like, at least when I was looking into it and fighting for it here, I had called all of our local districts, and all of our local districts had different versions of it in their wellness policy.
Mhm.
Some had it as a philosophy, some didn't mention it at all. Some said it's up to the admins. Some said that we would like our teachers to do it, but it's not going to be anything that we tell them that they have to do. So when I had searched, it was like 22 districts I had looked into in our area, and it was only like two of them had it where it was actually in their policy to have it where teachers were told to do it. But again, there was no checks or balances. And New York has some pretty high standards in terms of what they expect from
Well,
teachers, so it made it harder.
yeah, I mean, honestly, we've shifted. No Child Left Behind was a big shift to testing.
Mhm.
Um, you know, maybe not to get into the nitty-gritty of politics, but lobbyists have a big part to play in this. And they have intervention programs. We had lobbyists come out against this heavily
Of
and
course.
say
Yeah.
no, like studies show they need to be in the classroom longer.
No.
And I'm like, where are you getting
Yeah.
any of your research?
Hmm.
Some wouldn't meet with us because they thought it wasn't worth their time. But then we had some lobbyists who were great. So I don't want to imply that all lobbyists are evil or bad. But my point is we met with lobbyists who didn't have the best intent as far as what is developmentally appropriate for our kids. Um,
Well,
and
well, and I think the other thing is lobbyists were paid to push something, right?
Yeah.
mhm.
And your in your role in this with your children in school, you were a parent that was pushing for it. Nobody's paying you to do this.
Right. Yeah, we're doing it volunteer. And I think politicians get a bad rep, and I can understand it, but we met with so many politicians, and they really are trying hard to do the right thing. And some of them are just outvoted. Some of them care very much, but you have 1,000 bills go across your desk, so you can't keep up with all the education standards. And then
Exactly, right?
you can't win no matter what. Someone's mad at you. So I will say that us getting a law passed, we had several one-on-one genuine conversations about this is what kids need. They need to get off their phone. They need to get outside. Now, Tennessee in the same year passed a no phone policy. So they sort of tag team these bills, and a lot of people thought, hey, we got to pass these two bills. We got to get kids off their phone and get them outside. So lawmakers passed both.
There you go.
Right, I think which is a good start. And that's a good start, but of course kids are going to fight back. Teachers are going to fight back. It's a big change and there will be less and less infraction. Kids will get used to it. Teachers will get used to it. We're one semester into this new law, and a lot of teachers we hear from personally are loving it, but the some of the louder voices are like, "Hey, I'm going to contact my rep. This is just too much. We need to lower this." The world you live in, it's the arena of politics. But I
And
It
think
is.
it needs time. I think
I
just
think
needs
it's
time.
interesting too because you have some younger teachers who never experienced recess. So
Right.
now to be told to allow for recess, they don't have anything to pull from. Where I
Right.
have very specific memories of recess in grade school and what we were able to do or the freedom that we had. And looking at some of my son's teachers, because I had a very similar story like yours. He was in first grade when I started to see that there were some struggles. And some of those younger teachers, they never had recess. So how
Yeah.
could they support it if they didn't even know what it really was?
So what's funny is Tennessee has always been permissive, meaning they could have given 40 minutes already. The mandate was no less than 15. They could give an hour if they wanted. It was no less than 15. Nobody was doing that. But what we found is the senior teachers, the senior teachers who had been in the system for a long time didn't care to sort of fudge the timing and say, you know what? No, I'm going to give my kids 5 more minutes. I'm going to give my kids more recess. I'm going to give my kids a break. The younger teachers coming right out of school, they're scared. They want to follow
Mhm,
it by the minute. They
mhm,
didn't want to break any rules, even though they're like, hey, we're pro recess, but we hear a lot of but from the newer teachers. And the senior ones are being run out. I mean, the
Mhm.
landscape of teaching right now, I don't blame them. They're leaving in drones because there's so much on them.
mhm.
We weren't trying to put something else on them. We've been trying really hard to work with teachers, work with the county. We don't want to go against anybody. That doesn't help anybody.
Right.
But it was the senior teachers, and the senior teachers are the ones leaving. And so we got to have teachers sort of, but they're scared, and that's why we're trying to speak up for them. And parents can get a lot further. Are not in the system, so yeah,
Mhm.
it's those younger teachers who are scared. Yeah.
I think one of the things that would be so helpful for teachers to who didn't have the experience of recess to have someone that could support them in trying it for, let's try um, to take the kids out for 20 minutes twice a day. And let's do it mid morning and right after lunch or something, right?
Mhm.
And let's just see what happens, right? Because what we
Yeah.
know is that when you're able to give children that freedom outside where their brains can reset from being all academic to integrate more of their
Hmm.
thinking, that those behavior problems go down.
They do
And
go down. Yeah, they do go down. And the thing is we've heard this is very little. I will say, I don't want to say this is a big argument we've heard because we've only heard it maybe 3 or 4 times, but they say our kids just want to go back inside. They don't want to be outside for 40 minutes or 220. And I'm like, well, it's because they're used to 10 minutes. Kids don't want to eat broccoli either. They want to be on a cell phone. You got to take it away. Like that's where we come in as guidance.
Mhm,
But I will say too, we need to just like teachers, again, teachers are great. They're working hard. But like even this morning, my 10-year-old came home. She's in fourth grade and she said, oh, Mom, I forgot to tell you about science yesterday. She goes, it was awesome. And I was like, what'd you do? And she doesn't really talk like that a lot. Like she doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty every day. And she said, well, we learned about animals and the ecosystem and what animal, eats other animals in the chain and all that. I was like, that's cool. So she said, they took us to the ox gym and we all got assigned an animal. And you could only tag the animal that you were allowed to eat, right? And it was like this really creative, and they pulled all the fourth graders in. And my daughter was a whale, so she couldn't get tagged, but she could eat everything else. And she goes, yeah, everyone like if you weren't a whale, people were mad because you couldn't get tagged. But it was such a good like that, like she's talking about that. She remembers it. She's running around saying, "Who can I tag? Why can't I tag you?" She's going to remember that,
Mhm.
you know. And
Of
she
course she is.
and that was fourth grade, and they brought in play, and that was the teachers, the fourth grade teachers who are doing great. So I think sometimes we think, oh, it's only recess, only recess. You can incorporate play into any subject and make it
Yes.
fun, and teachers just need the space and the courage to do it, you know, the support of admin to do it. So I think
I
play
think
is really
admin
great.
trusting their teachers
Yes,
too.
yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. And I luckily, you know, my kids are at a school where I think admin does back them up. They just built a new Ox gym, but you know, some of these schools, they don't have any extra space. Some, you know, indoor recess isn't a thing when it's raining. They're like, go to the cafeteria. They don't have an extra cafeteria. It's being used for lunch. Go to the Ox gym. They don't have an Ox gym, you know, so it's like these assumptions that a lot of people are making. I'm like, no, you got to like really look into it and understand that physical activity has to be worked for in a lot of these schools, and that's sad. So our organization's also, you know, moving forward on getting grants to try to get low-income schools in our areas and playgrounds. New
Mhm.
playgrounds. We, you know, partnered with an organization out of Canada who does recess boxes. So we've donated several boxes of recess equipment. We don't want to just come in and say, "Hey, you need more recess," and then peace out. Like we want to be part of the conversation and continue that because as long as the conversation is going, then I think recess is a priority. You know.
Mhm.
So one of the things, Rachel, I first thank you for all the
Mhm.
work that your group is doing. And I think it's a powerful group and a group that you're obviously having a huge impact because you're moving into other states to help those advocates support more recess.
Mhm.
One of the things that I hear because children haven't had an opportunity to play a lot
Mhm.
without an adult there directing them is that the teachers will say, oh, they're just bored. So, you know, they don't really do anything when they're out for recess. And I'm
Mhm.
like, that's good for them to be bored. They
Yeah.
need to
What's wrong with being
figure
bored?
it
Yeah.
out, right?
Mhm.
And so, what is it? What are the little things that could go on a playground that children might be interested in? So sit them down and say, when we go outside, what would be fun for you to have out there? And you know,
Yeah.
typically not really expensive things. You give them
No.
stuff that they can
Mhm.
move and build with, and they have enough time
Yeah.
with out there to get engaged. You know, do they have jump ropes? Oh my goodness. Can the teachers teach them how to play jacks? My God, that was my recess. I played for
Well, I mean, even they can race, you know, they can race. You know, I was at we went to, we checked out a new restaurant in Nashville the other day, and it was before it got cold, so a couple months ago. And there was no playground. Nothing. But there was like this little hill with rocks and sticks and dirt and blah blah. And we were there for such a long time. My kids were like, we're gonna go play. So I was like, okay. I walked around and like my kids were like, hey, come and look at this. And one had built an office and it was a rock with sticks. And like she had gotten these little rocks to make keyboard. Like and it was all of like she did that. She just built an environment out of the forest, right? But it took her time. You know, she didn't just come on that. She was like, what do I do? But I think too, there was a mom out of Nashville who has an autistic daughter. And she said, the thing about recess is, you know, it's the only time of the day where an adult isn't running the show, right? So, you know, in PE, people say, well, they can get PE. PE is run by an adult, right? So
run by the
if you get in
adult.
a conflict with another kid, they have to problem solve that. If you are playing tag, freeze tag, it teaches impulse control, right? Um, but all that to say is when they're bored, and given enough time, they discover something to do. And this girl who was autistic, she became friends with the mom talks about it how she would go out and find these like I don't know what kind of bug it was, but that was her thing. She would find a bug and like build a little environment for this bug at recess because she didn't
Mm-hmm.
like she was autistic, you know, the environment sort of was overwhelming to her, but she was able to go to this little wooded area and do that. And so I think my kids, when they're at home and they say I'm bored, I'm like, oh my goodness, what are we gonna do? Should we call the cops? Like I'm just so
Yeah.
sarcastic because they know not to ask me. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's an emergency. They're bored. What should
You're
we
bored.
do? You know, and they know not to say it now because they're gonna be like, Mom doesn't care, you know, because I'm like, go find something to do. I'm like, you can clean if you want. And they never want to clean, but they'll just go outside, they'll figure out something to do. Because boredom, I think our society has made it a bad thing.
Yep.
And I'm like, it's not bad, you know, it's not
No,
bad.
they need to be bored.
Yeah.
They need to learn. I mean, how many times do parents who are it's easier to turn on the TV or to let them have the iPad or whatever it is, right? Because I'm bored, and their
Hmm.
parents are like, "Oh, I better get this many
Yeah.
things done," and so it's an easy fix
It is.
to
And
say,
I've been there, right? I'm like, oh,
"Yeah,
I got to get something done. I've been there. And it's hard. You know, I think it's hard to see your kids sort of suffer. And sometimes moms or dads don't want any suffering. But
mm-hmm,
sometimes it's like you can't give them entertainment all the time. And kids are so fun, you know, the way they think and the way they talk. And I just love it. My son turned 4 2 days ago. And the way he sort of sees and views the world, I'm just like, where do we lose that? You know, I was like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, very non-age appropriate question for someone just turning 4. And he's like, I just want to grow up and play with my sisters. You know, that was his answer because that's all he knew was play. You know, he didn't think about professions and all this kind of stuff. And I just love the innocence of a child. So, I mean, if you give them time to play, um, you know, they'll discover a lot of stuff. So that's why we advocate for recess.
And I think we have to have that
absolutely,
transition too for the kids that aren't used to it. Like
yes,
there's
Yeah.
been times where we've had kids come over and we don't have the screens, we don't have the phones, we don't, if they come with the phone, it sits on the table, like, and they don't know what to do.
They
And
don't.
they like, what do you mean I have freedom? Like, I'd like to think that we have a really awesome backyard. There's a mud kitchen, climbing dome garden, there's all this stuff to do. I have no rules in the backyard. They make them a mud pit. And some of these kids are just I have no clue what to do. Aren't you going to tell me what to do? And no, the backyard
no,
is yours. Figure it
Yeah.
out. But I think like that transition, whether it's at home or at a play events or just like recess for the kids that aren't given that downtime, that's a
mhm,
hard thing to have to work through.
But
And
they,
I
yeah,
think,
but they will, like, that's the thing is like they've got to be given time to work through it
yep,
because I think a lot of these teachers and admins want to come to the rescue right now and say they're
yep,
just
yeah,
used to 40 minutes.
exactly.
Let them get used to 40 minutes. Let
Yep.
them get used to it. They will get used to it. Kids
Hmm.
are
and
really,
ask them what are some things that we could put here that are cheap that you could,
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they I think the children who have been told forever, this is what you're going to do, this is how long you're going to be there, blah blah blah, right? Those kids have not a clue. So it's almost like, yes, we need to let you be bored so that you can figure out what to do. But sometimes those kids will then, well, then I'm just going to go, I'm going to go I'm going to go pick on this child or something because they don't have the social skills or the ability to think through. So they just do, well, what can I do to get an adult's attention in some ways?
Hmm.
And and so I do think we have to have some. I love the kits that you're doing from Canada, and I'd love you to talk more about that on the next Porch Play Chat. Um, but I think they need something. So the school needs to provide some, even if it's balls. My goodness, let you know. I love
Well,
the tether ball thing.
yeah,
That
Taylor was awesome. I,
like,
I know we're sort of pushed for time. I will say one thing we've discovered is recess equality, right?
Hmm.
So I'm in a county with almost about to be 27 elementary schools,
oof,
and we'll do fundraisers every year. It's the same fundraiser that goes to physical activity. And one school just raised $60,000 in 2 weeks to shade their 3 playgrounds. Okay. But
okay,
there's a school 20 miles down the road that didn't raise enough money to have mulch on the one playground they have.
oh
Okay.
boy,
I say that because that is a dramatic example, but that's what we're seeing. And so we do see low income schools
Hmm.
being their recess being affected. I mean,
Hmm.
it
It's
is, let's
equity.
be honest. Um, are there solutions to that? Sure, that's for another day. But my point in saying that is that's another thing is like recess equality is a thing. Like it's
And
not
it's equity, right? And one of the things that we hear all the time when we were presenting at NAYC, Kim Adams and I were presenting, and several of the people who were there with us in the audience said, because we were talking about play schemas and we were talking about what the expectations are that we have and the hopes and dreams we have for children. And one of the, well, not one, several of the people there in the room, there were about 130 of them, said, my problem is I work in a state funded preschool with at risk children, and we do worksheets all day because we have to catch them up. And I'm like, you recognize that that's not how you're going to catch them up.
right.
And they're like,
Hmm.
yes, we recognize.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and so it's those expectations, getting back to what you talked about. No breaks for children for junior high or for high school, even though adults
Crazy.
get breaks.
It's crazy.
So I think it's going back to recognizing and helping other people see that what we expect of children is so much different
Yeah.
than expectations for adults.
A lot of,
Rachel, it's been
yeah.
incredible. We have got to have you back. So the other thing I want you to think about doing for the maybe for the let's see, January, February, March, maybe for the April quarterly newsletter that we do is to just write up about yes to recess, say yes to recess, and sort of the push that you've been able, the really the outcomes that you've been able to have, so that we can share that with the members in other states, so that maybe they would
Yeah.
come.
We'd be happy to do that. I mean, our goal, I mean, I'm in my pink shirt. I didn't like really, you can't really see it. Yeah, you can actually, we made shirts and you can order like off our website because we want people just wearing pink. It's not really, I mean, it's associated with some things, but like we just want to be bright and fun. But yeah, we'd be happy to write a newsletter. Our goal is to launch chapters in all 50 states and to really like protect recess, advocate and protect it. And so I'd be thrilled to write something up, or one of our group would. Yeah.
That would be
Let us
great
know when
because
yeah, when you would need it.
yeah, so early April, or late March, so it gives you time. And just like a column in our
Mhm.
quarterly play blast would be great. So um, then people will reach out to you, and that
Yeah,
will be
yeah,
fabulous.
yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna close this out. Stay right there.
Okay.
To learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.